His old Chevy truck wheezed to a stop outside a rusted gas station, the engine rattling like it was trying to shake off death. The windshield was cracked, the tires bald, and the man behind the wheel looked about as worn as the vehicle itself. Unshaven, sunburned, and dressed in a faded flannel shirt, Eli wasn't just out of money. He was out of direction. He stepped out, boots crunching against gravel, and stretched beneath the relentless Texas sun. The town looked like a ghost of itself. A few boarded-up storefronts, a diner that had seen better decades, and a sheriff's office that probably hadn't made an arrest since cassette tapes were still a thing. Eli was just passing through. At least, that was the plan, until he saw the flyer dot taped to the window of the gas station was a clean, bright sheet of paper that stood out from the dusty glass like a slap in the face. For S.A.E. Westward Ranch, $1 clear title. First come, first served. Inquire at City Records. He squinted, reread it, then scoffed under his breath. $1? Sure, and I got beachfront property in Nevada. Still something about it dug into him. Curiosity, maybe? Or desperation. Probably both. Inside the station, an old man with nicotine-stained fingers leaned against the counter, watching Eli like someone who'd seen too many strangers wander in with too little hope. "You looking at the flyer?" the man asked, chewing on a toothpick that had long since lost its flavor. "Yeah," Eli said. "That for real?" The man gave a slow, raspy chuckle. "It's real. Ain't no one been dumb enough to take it in years." "Most folks know better." Eli raised an eyebrow. "What's the catch?" "You ever hear of the Harris family?" the old man asked. "No. They own that ranch. Big spread. Cattle. Horses. The works. Then one summer, maybe 30 years back, they just disappeared. Whole family. Vanished like smoke. Some say it was a murder-suicide. Others think it was something worse. Cursed land, if you believe in that kinda thing." Eli shrugged. "I don't." "Maybe you should," the old man said. "People say they still see lights in the windows at night. Some say they've seen a girl out by the porch staring at nothing. And everyone who's tried to live there since don't stay long." "You really believe that?" The man narrowed his eyes. "I believe that place eats people." Eli looked out the window at the flyer again. $1. One single, solitary dollar dot after all he'd lost, the job in West Texas, the breakup with Maria, the months sleeping in the back of his truck. Maybe all he needed was one last leap of faith dot or madness dot by noon. Eli was standing in front of the town clerk, signing papers. No questions asked. No red tape. Just a key and a quiet good luck from a woman who didn't even look him in the eye dot by 2 p.m. He was driving up the long dirt road toward Westward Ranch. The land stretched. Wide and open, golden fields swaying in the wind like waves of silence. The main house came into view, weather-beaten and crooked, with boarded windows and a porch that sagged like a tired spine. A rusted swing creaked in the breeze. No birds, no bugs, just wind. Eli parked and stepped out, the air strangely cool. For summer dot, he stood there for a long moment, staring at the house dot. It looked empty, dead. But something about it felt like it was waiting. He shook off the thought, grabbed his duffel, and climbed the porch steps. They groaned beneath his weight. The key turned with a tired click dot as he pushed open the door. Dust spilled into the sunlight and the air inside. Smelled like wood, age, and something else. Something faintly sweet, like lavender. Or memory. Eli stepped in, the floor whispering beneath his boots. This was his now, a fresh start. Dirt cheap, haunted or not. What he didn't know was that the house wasn't abandoned. Someone had been waiting. Eli stood in the doorway, squinting into the dimness of the house. Dust floated in the air like old memories, catching the sun through gaps in the boarded-up windows. The silence was thick, not peaceful but heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. The interior was mostly intact, just frozen in time. Furniture still stood where it belonged, covered in white sheets and fine layers of dust. Old photographs hung crooked on the walls. A lamp sat on a side table beside a long-dead rotary phone. This place had been left in a hurry. Or hadn't been touched in years. He dropped his duffel by the door and wandered further in. His boots echoed on the wooden floors as he passed through the sitting room, the kitchen, and then up the creaking staircase toward the second floor. The upstairs hallway stretched out before him, long and shadowed. He ran his hand along the wall, feeling the cold texture of the old wallpaper. Then he stopped. A soft sound, almost like a breath, came from the far end of the hall. He turned his head, narrowing his eyes. That's when he saw her, a girl maybe in her early 20s, standing barefoot at the end of the hallway. Her dress was pale, old-fashioned, like something out of the 1950s. Her hair fell in waves to her shoulders, and her skin looked almost translucent in the half-light. She wasn't startled by him. She didn't speak. She just watched him. Eli froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. "Hey," he said, his voice rough in the silence. You live here?" She blinked once, then nodded slowly. "I thought this place was empty," he said, taking a cautious step forward. "I bought it this morning. From the county." "I know," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, calm, too calm. Eli frowned. "I'm Eli Turner." She tilted her head slightly. "Collie. Okay. Did someone sell this to you? Or are you renting from someone?" She gave the faintest smile, then looked past him toward the staircase. "You shouldn't be here." Eli felt a chill crawl up his back. "Why not?" "This house doesn't like new people," she said, almost as if quoting something she'd heard a long time ago. "I don't believe in haunted houses," he said, though his voice didn't carry much conviction. She looked at him again, not angry, not scared, just sad. "Then you might be the first." Without another word, Collie turned and walked down the hall, disappearing behind a door that clicked shut without a sound. Eli stood in place for a long moment, trying to process what he'd just seen. He wasn't the jumpy type. He'd seen enough hardship in his life to keep fear at a distance. But this wasn't right. How had no one mentioned a girl still living here? Was she squatting? Hiding? Was this some kind of local prank? He made his way back downstairs, trying to shake it off. Maybe she was just as desperate as he was, stuck here with nowhere to go. Maybe she'd been living off the grid. That would explain the dress, the quiet, but it didn't explain how calm she was or how she knew his name before he gave it. Back in the kitchen, he opened a few cabinets. Empty, clean, too clean. The fridge was unplugged, but had no mold, no stench. It was like time had stopped in here. Eli glanced out the kitchen window toward the barn. The sun was sinking low now, casting long shadows across the tall grass. The place looked peaceful, but every now and then he thought he caught movement. At the edge of the fields, shapes in the corners of his vision that vanished when he looked directly at them. He decided to sleep downstairs that night, close to the door, just in case. As darkness crept over the ranch, the old house settled in its bones. Eli lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening. Somewhere above, faintly, he heard the soft creak of footsteps on the floorboards. The girl was still here, and he wasn't sure if that should comfort him or scare him to death. The morning sun crept in through broken blinds, casting fractured beams of light across the sitting room. Eli sat upright on the musty couch, groggy and tense. He hadn't slept much. Between the strange silence, the eerie groans of the house, and the soft creaking from above. It was a miracle he'd slept at all, but what stuck with him most was her. Collie, he half hoped she'd be gone come morning, that maybe she'd slipped out sometime during the night and he could chalk the whole thing up to exhaustion. But the footsteps he'd heard on the second floor weren't his imagination, and he wasn't leaving. Not after everything it had taken to get here. This ranch, haunted or not, was his. Eli pushed open the back door and stepped out into the morning air. The land stretched wide and golden, quiet as a prayer. He walked to the barn, kicking up dry dirt beneath his boots. Rust flaked from the hinges as he opened the doors. Inside, everything was old, but strangely well kept. Saddles still hung on the wall. Tools were stacked neatly. Dusty, yes, but untouched by time in a way that felt unnatural. In the far corner, covered by a tarp, he found a stack of crates. Inside were remnants of a family, photo albums, letters, newspaper clippings. He flipped one open and froze. There she was. Collie. Smiling in black and white, maybe 16 or 17, standing in front of the same ranch house. The photo was dated June 1975. Eli sat back on a hay bale, turning the picture in his hands. She hadn't aged a day. He dug through the rest of the box. A local paper, the Dry Creek Chronicle, with a headline that sent a chill through him. Family vanishes from ranch. No signs of struggle. Authorities baffled. July 1976. The article spoke of the Harris family, Daniel and Rose Harris, and their daughter, Collie Mae Harris. No bodies were found. No signs of violence. Just an empty house and unanswered questions. Locals speculated everything from murder to cult activity. The case eventually went cold. Eli leaned back, rubbing the back of his neck. What the hell have I stepped into? When he returned to the house, it was even quieter than before. He climbed the stairs slowly, calling out, "Collie?" No answer. The hallway was still. He stopped outside her door, the one she'd disappeared behind the night before. For a moment, he considered knocking. Instead, he pushed gently. It creaked open. Inside, the room looked lived in. The bed was made. A vase of dried lavender sat on the knitstand. The curtains were open, letting in soft light. A journal lay closed on the desk, a name written across the cover in delicate script. Collie M. Harris. He shouldn't read it. He knew that, but something urged him forward. He opened to the last page. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. Sometimes I forget how long it's been. Some nights I dream I left, that I escaped this place. But when I wake up, the house is still here. The silence still holds me, and I wait. I always wait. The floor creaked behind him. Eli turned. Collie stood in the doorway, her eyes steady, unreadable. "You've been reading about me," she said quietly. "I needed answers." She nodded, stepping into the room. "Most don't ask. They run." "You're not alive. Not really, are you?" She hesitated. "Not in the way you are. Then what are you?" Eli asked, not out of fear, but a deep aching need to understand. She looked out the window. "I don't know anymore. I was a girl once. Then the house took something from me, or maybe I gave it willingly. I can't tell the difference now." Eli was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "Why me? Why let me see you?" Collie met his gaze. "Because you didn't run, and the house, it doesn't like to be empty for long." Eli couldn't shake the weight of her words. The house doesn't like to be empty for long. He'd been through hard times, seen his share of loss and disappointment, but nothing ever made him feel this out of place in reality. A girl who hadn't aged in 50 years. A house that seemed to hold on to her like a secret it refused to share. And now it was holding on to him. The next morning, Eli returned to town. He needed answers. Real ones. The Dry Creek Library was a narrow building tucked behind the diner, coated in dust and time. Inside, a single librarian sat behind the desk, gray-haired and half asleep. She looked up as Eli approached. "I'm looking for information on the Harris family," he said. "From the 1970s. Westward Ranch." At the mention of the name, the woman's face tightened ever so slightly. "You bought that place?" she asked, her tone more surprised than judgmental. "I did." She studied him for a moment, then stood slowly and motioned for him to follow Dot in the back of the library. She pulled a box of archived newspaper clippings and town records. "Most folks around here avoid talking about that place. But if you're serious, this is what we've got." Eli sifted through the files, flipping past yellowed headlines. "Harris family still missing. Search continues, sheriff calls. OFF investigation. No evidence found, local ranch sold for pennies in county AUCT. Then something caught his eye. A scanned image of an old letter written in shaky handwriting. The house is alive. It watches. It whispers. We tried to leave, but the doors wouldn't open. It's not just haunted, it's hungry. Rose Harris, there was no explanation, no further context. Just that single chilling paragraph. Eli sat back, heart thudding. A letter written by Callie's mother. Trapped, afraid, warning someone, anyone, about what the house really was. He returned to the ranch late that afternoon, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. The house came into view just as the sun began to fall behind the hills, casting long shadows across the land. It looked patient. Waiting. Inside, the air was cooler. Still, Callie stood in the hallway, as if she'd been there the whole time. "You found it, didn't you?" she asked. "The letter," he said. "From your mother. She knew something was wrong with this place." "She did," Callie whispered, "but by then it was too late." "What is this house, Callie? What's keeping you here?" She turned away, walking slowly toward the sitting room. Eli followed. "There's something buried beneath this place," she said softly. "Not just the land, something older. My father used to say this land was blessed, but he was wrong. It wasn't blessed. It was claimed." "Claimed by what?" She hesitated. "I don't know. A presence. A force. It feeds on memory, grief, loss. We brought pain here, and it made roots in us. We became part of it." Eli stood silent, absorbing her words. Callie sat down on the edge of the fireplace, hands folded in her lap like a ghost still bound to her final routine. "My parents tried to leave," she said. "We packed the truck, tried to drive. But the road twisted back every time. Eventually, we gave up." Eli shook his head. "Why would the county sell this place? Why not burn it down?" "They tried," she said. "It won't burn." 4. The first time, Eli noticed the fireplace bricks. Blackened, scorched, but not destroyed. Like fire had come here once and been swallowed. He took a slow breath. "So why me?" Callie finally looked up. "Because you're empty too, Eli. The house smells it, feels the weight you carry. It thinks it can fill you." Eli turned away, the truth of her words stinging more than he wanted to admit. "I don't believe in haunted houses," he muttered. Callie stood. "Then it'll take longer, but you will." She disappeared down the hallway again, her figure melting into the shadows like a memory retreating into sleep. Eli stood alone, the silence humming around him, thick and full. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, the house breathed, and now it knew his name. That night, the wind howled through the cracks in the boarded-up windows, and the house groaned like it was remembering something painful. Eli sat by the cold fireplace, staring into the darkness, his boots planted on the dusty wooden floor, Callie's words looping in his mind. "The house smells it, feels the weight you carry." It thinks it can fill you. He hadn't asked her what that meant, because deep down he already knew. The house saw the emptiness in him. It fed on the broken, and he was as broken as they came. Strange drafts slipped from somewhere beneath the hearth, cold, damp, wrong. Eli knelt down and ran his fingers across the floor. One of the hearthstones felt loose. He pried it up with a rusted iron poker. Beneath it was a small iron ring set into the wood, a hatch. He hesitated. Then pulled. With a loud creak, the panel opened, revealing a narrow, winding staircase made of stone spiraling into the dark beneath the house. A cellar. Hidden. No flashlight, no lantern. Just his lighter. He flicked it open, casting a flickering flame into the darkness. The air was thick down there. Old, heavy with earth and something else. Not rot, exactly. Not death. But grief. Stale, unmoving grief. Step by step, Eli descended into the cellar. The walls were lined with old bricks covered in moss and soot. It wasn't large, maybe no bigger than a tool shed, but something about it felt infinite, as if time had collected here and refused to move forward. In the center sat a small, scorched table with three objects: a burned journal, a family photograph. Eli recognized Collie, younger, smiling, and a bone-handled knife resting on top of a hand-woven cloth, now blackened by age and fire. Eli picked up the journal, flipping carefully through the charred pages. Most of it was unreadable, but a few entries remained. Rose insists we leave. She says the dreams are getting worse. I saw Collie speaking to something in the mirror, something that wasn't her reflection. The land's not right. It's not the soil. It's under the soil. The thing beneath listens. And it remembers pain. I tried the fire. It only laughed. If you find this, know that she didn't die. The house wouldn't let her. Eli's throat tightened. He backed away from the table. Then, a voice behind him. I didn't want you to see this. Eli spun. Collie stood in the entrance to the cellar, barefoot, pale, calm. Her eyes gleamed in the dim light of his lighter. She didn't look angry. She looked afraid. Is this where it happened? Eli asked. Where your family tried to burn it? Collie nodded once. This is where it began and where it ends. Over and over again. You said the house feeds on people? Not people, she said softly. Their pain, their grief, their emptiness. That's why it draws them here. That's why it kept me. Eli felt the truth in her voice like a cold nail through his spine. He glanced back at the photograph. The girl in the picture looked full of life, vibrant, unbroken. Why didn't it take you? He asked. If it feeds on grief, why not yours? She looked at the photo too. Her voice was barely a whisper. It did. A silence settled between them. And then a sound, faint, from the far wall of the cellar. Like someone breathing. Wet clothes. The flame on Eli's lighter flickered. Collie reached forward and touched his arm. You need to go back upstairs. You said there's no leaving. Not yet. But when the house shows you what it wants, you'll understand. Just don't look back when you leave this room. Eli swallowed hard. Not even once, she added. He nodded slowly, backing away from the table, past Collie and up the stairs. As he reached the hatch, he felt it. Something breathing just behind him. He didn't look back, not even once. He sealed. The cellar shut and collapsed on the floor, breath ragged, his hands shaking. The house was alive. And now it was awake. Asterisk the next morning. The ranch was still. The wind had vanished, and with it, any sense of movement. The air hung heavy, like the sky was waiting for something. Eli hadn't slept. He'd laid awake on the floor of the living room, staring at the hatch beneath the fireplace. At some point, during the night, he thought he'd heard voices again, murmurs in the walls, like a dozen whispers just beyond hearing. He hadn't dared open it. Not yet. Collie hadn't appeared since the cellar. Her absence was louder than any ghost. He checked her room, empty. The bed untouched, the curtains swaying as if she'd never existed at all. But she had. He knew she had, and now he needed answers. In the barn, Eli rifled through the Harris family's old belongings again. He found the burned journal, the one that matched the fragments in the cellar. But buried beneath it all was a thick leather-bound book. No title. Just a darkened cover and pages edged with soot. He opened it. Inside were symbols, diagrams, rituals. The handwriting wasn't like the others. It was older, jagged, almost primal. The ink had faded in places, but enough remained to send chills down his spine. The binding of the soil, the offering of the spirit. Blood anchors the land. Pain strengthens the bond. He flipped to the back, where a diagram of the ranch was sketched. The house, the barn, and beneath them, a symbol carved deep into the earth. A sigil, not for protection, but for imprisonment. A note was scribbled in the margin. If the spirit resists, the ritual must repeat, until the house is fed. Until the land is quiet again. Eli leaned back, stunned. Collie hadn't been just a victim of the house. She was part of a ritual, a sacrifice, and it had never ended. That night, as the sun vanished behind the horizon, the house seemed to settle into something deeper, a hunger just beneath the wood and stone. Eli sat at the kitchen table with the book open, staring at the inked pages as the light around him slowly died. And then Collie appeared, not from the hallway, not from the cellar. She stepped in from the front door, barefoot, pale, quiet. You found it, she said. I did, Eli replied. Your father did this, didn't he? Collie nodded once. Her expression wasn't angry, just tired. He didn't mean to. He thought he could fix the land, save the ranch. We were already struggling. He believed the stories, the old symbols. He said the land had to be anchored, that a spirit would protect it. But it didn't protect anyone. No, she whispered. It kept me. Eli stood. You were just a girl. You didn't deserve this. I was the only one the house didn't reject, she said softly. It fed on my pain, my fear. It still does. I tried to forget who I was, but the house won't let me. Then we end it, Eli said. Whatever this is, the sigil, the bond, we break it. She looked at him with something like sorrow. You don't break it, you replace it. He froze. What do you mean? The house doesn't want to be empty. That's why it lets people come. That's why it let you come. It sees the grief in you, the loss, and it gives you what you're missing. Eli felt the words settle deep inside. Like truth, painful truth. Is that what you are? A replacement for someone else? Collie nodded. The last caretaker made the choice. He took the house's bargain. He gave me time, but now it wants another. And if I refuse? Then it'll wait. It always waits. Eli looked down at the journal again, then back at her. There has to be another way. I hope there is, she said quietly. But no one's found it yet. They stood in silence. Two souls trapped by the same house, one literally, the other emotionally. Both claimed by grief, both staring into a future that was rapidly closing in. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The wind outside rose again, howling through the cracks in the wood. The boards on the windows groaned. The hatch in the fireplace rattled. The house was stirring. Its time was nearly up, and it wanted to be fed. The wind howled like it was alive. The house trembled, not from age, but from something deeper, like it was waking from a long slumber. Eli stood in the center of the kitchen, the leather-bound ritual book open before him, and Collie beside. him like a ghost stitched to his shadow. The lights flickered again. Then went out. Complete silence fell. And then the floor began to breathe. He felt it beneath his boots, a slow, steady rise and fall, like the ranch house itself was drawing in air. Its heartbeat throbbed in the walls. A low vibration hummed through the beams and boards. The cellar hatch at the fireplace cracked open with a sharp pop. Collie didn't move. "This is it," she whispered. Eli turned to her. "You said it wants a replacement. What if I don't agree?" She looked at him, her eyes sad but steady. "Then it'll keep both of us, and try again with the next drifter. The next soul who's broken enough to belong." Eli clenched his fist. All his life he had been running from debt, from regret, from the pain of losing his brother in a fire that was his fault. That guilt had followed him from town to town, making him a stranger in every mirror, and now the house had found it, smelled it, invited him in like bait on a hook. "You're not the same as it," Eli said. "You don't want this." "I don't," Collie said. "But I can't stop it. I'm part of it now, bound by it. If someone doesn't take my place, I'll be stuck here forever." "You shouldn't have to stay here to be free," she smiled gently. "Freedom has a cost." Eli's eyes fell to the sigil drawn on the kitchen floor, faint but still visible beneath layers of dust. He hadn't noticed it before. Now it pulsed faintly with light, like something underneath was watching. He took a deep breath. "I'll go down," he said. Collie stepped forward, her voice urgent. "If you do, you can't change your mind. Once the house accepts your offer, it's done. Maybe it's what I deserve." She shook her head. "It's not about what you deserve, Eli. It's about what you're willing to give." They walked together to the hearth. The hatch now stood wide open, revealing the stone steps below. The same cold draft rose to meet them, wet, stale, almost metallic. Eli looked at her. "If I do this, will you be free?" She nodded slowly. "I think so. But I won't remember you. No one ever remembers. The house doesn't let them." "That's okay," Eli said. "You don't have to." He took the first step down. The shadows seemed to rise up to meet him. But before he disappeared into the dark, Collie said one last thing. "Thank you." Eli paused. Looked back, but she was already gone. The cellar was no longer just a room. It had changed. The walls pulsed like muscle. The stones were damp, the symbols on the floor glowing faintly. The table still stood, but the artifacts were gone. In their place was a mirror, tall, old, cracked down the center. In the reflection, Eli didn't see himself. He saw his brother, his younger brother Jake, standing in the flames of that night. All over again, the house was testing him, tempting him. Jake looked at him, eyes pleading. "You can undo it," the voice of the house whispered from nowhere and everywhere. "You can take his place, rewrite the past. You only have to say yes." Eli's heart pounded. His mouth was dry. He stepped closer to the mirror, then stopped. "No," he whispered. "I'm done running." The house groaned. Something ancient shuddered in the stone. "I'm not here to relive it," Eli said louder. "I'm here to end it." He knelt and traced the old sigil in the dirt with his fingers, just as he'd seen in the journal. The lines flared with red light. The mirror cracked further. The wall shook. The voice screamed. And then silence. Real silence. Above him, the cellar hatch creaked open, and sunlight poured in. Eli awoke on the floor of the sitting room. The air was warm, still. The boards no longer groaned. The hatch was gone, sealed shut. Callie's room was empty. This time, truly empty. Her scent was gone, her presence erased. He stepped outside. The land looked brighter, lighter, as if a weight had lifted. There was no sign of her or the house's hunger. But Eli smiled, just slightly. She was free, and maybe So was he. Morning broke gently over the hills, casting golden light across the land that once felt haunted. For the first time since Eli Turner arrived at the ranch, the sky felt open, clean. The wind didn't whisper anymore. It just rustled the grass like it should. He stood on the front porch, arms crossed, watching, as the sun painted everything in warmth. The ranch was still old, still weather-worn and rough around the edges. But something was different now. The darkness was gone. The house wasn't breathing anymore. It was just a house. And Collie? Gone. No more faint footsteps in the hallway. No voice on the stairs. Her room stood bare, just an old space collecting dust and morning light. Eli had slept deeply for the first time in what felt like years. No dreams, no nightmares, just silence. Peaceful silence. He walked the property, slowly that morning, taking it all in. The barn, the fields, the hills in the distance. Even the cellar door beneath the fireplace had vanished, sealed over with fresh wood as though it had never been there at all. The journal was gone. The mirror was gone. Callie's picture, the one he'd seen in the barn, was no longer in the crate. It was like she'd been gently erased, set free from the house and from memory. Just like she said, "I won't remember you. The house doesn't let us." He didn't expect a goodbye, but it still stung. Inside the barn, Eli found one last thing, a letter, folded neatly and placed on the workbench. The handwriting was familiar, delicate and graceful, unmistakably Callie's. "Eli, if you're reading this, it means you chose the selfless path, and I'm free because of it. I don't remember your face. I don't know your name. But I know. Someone gave me back my soul. The house can't hurt anyone anymore. Not while your choice still echoes through its walls. But be warned. If you stay too long, the land may begin to remember. Walk away while the peace still holds. Leave it behind. Lev, C. He folded the letter, placed it in his coat pocket, and stood there for a long time. He could stay. He could. Tried to fix up the place. Grow roots. Let the past fade like smoke on the hills. But she was right. The house had taken too many lives. It wasn't evil anymore, but it still remembered. And Eli wasn't ready to tempt it again. By noon, he packed his truck. Just one bag, no photo, no memento. He didn't need one. The road out of the ranch was clearer than before, like it had been waiting to show itself. The fence posts looked straighter, the path smoother, the shadows lighter. As he drove down the dusty road, the house behind him grew smaller in the rearview mirror until it disappeared entirely. No one would believe his story, and that was fine. He didn't need them to. He had saved someone and maybe saved himself in the process. Eli Turner didn't need to belong to the past anymore. He had earned the right to move on.